The main objective of today's session is for those of you that are trying to build the foundation of your career in real estate. So whether you're new, just out of school, or even if you have been in this for a long time, we always need refreshment. Today, at the end of the session, which is a full 2-hour session, you will notice that there is a lot of things in this session that you will learn that the school that we all go to, unfortunately, did not cover these. So what happens at OREA, or Ontario Real Estate Association, where you go and study to get your license for real estate, most of the things that are discussed in OREA are mainly information and educational. There is not too much emphasis on a practical aspect of this business. So today we will try to transition you from what you have learned from school, but actually what's happening in real life. So it is like, going to a college or university especially, you learn so many things that sound good in books, but when you come to real work life, things are different. The other thing that OREA courses does, they are mainly technical and legal. So their main focus is the technical and legal aspect of this business. There is not much of a discussion about the marketing and establishing of your own business. So that's why we have this once a month, the first Saturday of every month, which is today, to introduce agents to transitioning from what they learn to what actually happens in real life. But remember that I think no matter what you learn, what we discussed today here, if you're just here to get notes and get excited, but you don't actually do it, nothing will happen. The majority of people are what I call is seminar junkies. So they go to these sessions, they learn quite a lot of things, they get excited, and unfortunately, this is what happens, that as they say, 20% of agents have control of 80% of the market. There are people recently arguing that there is only 5% of top producers that control more than 95% of the market. And the difference between them and the rest of the agents are not that they have gone to a lot of seminars or they had a lot of training. They might have, but the main reason is that whatever they know, whatever they have learned, they have implemented. So what you learn today or for the rest of the year, we have weekly training sessions. It boils down to how much of those you not only grasp, but you practice it. So that takes commitment, discipline. It all boils down to you, because the environment, if you have worked before, there is no employment and employee relationship in real estate. You're on your own. This is your own business. All a real estate brokerage does is to facilitate your success, but at the end of the day, you're on your own. You have your own free time. As they say, you're an independent contractor, which means whether you work or not work, it's like going to university. Whether you study or not, they will charge your fees. So in this business too, it boils down, there is no one there to tell you what to do. If you have discipline, if you have commitment, if you have motivation, it will happen. Otherwise, coming to these seminars is just information, and I would say, you're just learning things and not implementing them. There is a lot to discuss, and that's why we have a whole 1 year, every week, these training sessions. Some of you have attended our sessions online and here in the office. I would highly recommend to come to the office, although most people watch it from home. The reason I recommend to come here is because you get that vibe, excitement, and we can exchange ideas. There is a lot to learn, and so these 2 hours will not be enough. I will be sharing what has worked for me for the past 10 years. Actually, probably recently, maybe for the past 3-4 years, my main focus is commercial real estate. I don't practice too much residential. But still, what I have done at the beginning and the reason it worked for me, because you name it, I have done it. Whether it was in a book, or I went to a seminar, or I thought of some ideas, I have practiced everything. I did most of the things that I know that might have worked. Some of them worked very well, some of them did not work that well. So in these sessions, today is just the foundation of this training. But every third week, so not next week, the week after, actually this month it's a long weekend, so we don't have training session on long weekends, but every third week I expand what we learn. So for example, if we say listing presentation, for example, today, there is a whole session that we talk about the listing presentation. I think we did a couple of weeks ago, you were here. So if we talk about open houses, when we come to one of these third weeks, we will talk about the whole 2 hour about open houses. So that's why if you come today, if you have commitment, you would rather come to the third week sessions of these trainings. And if there is something that you don't learn here, especially if you're a new agent, you need more one-on-one help, I'm available, the staff are available to help you. I know for the first couple of your deals you might need help, so that help is available. I think the final thing that I want to say before I start today's session is that there will be tons of options presented to you in your career. So it depends on your personality. So let's say if you're a very courageous, brave person, you might like to go and do door knocking. If you're not, if you're a little bit more relaxed, then if you're a more closer to your friends and family, you might focus more on your friends and family, what we call in this industry, circle of your influence. So there will be tons of options today and for the rest of year presented to you. It absolutely depends on your personality. You have to align your business model according to your personality. If you don't enjoy what you do, for example, if you're door knocking and you're knocking on the door and praying that no one opens the door, then it means you're not in the right model of business. There are tons of options in real estate that you can generate business and generate leads. I think you have to somehow, after a few months, after some time, you have to fine-tune whatever model you're going to select depending on your personality, because each one of us are different. So what we present today, it doesn't mean you have to implement all of them. You have to see which one works for you, or at the beginning you might give a try to all of them, and then at the end maybe you will try to see which one works for you, because each person is different. So, having said all that introduction, we will be focusing mainly how to work with seller and buyer. At the end, I think the end is the most interesting, because it will give you the basics of how to plan your day, how to plan your schedule, and what are the things that you should focus on. Now, working with a seller or buyer, I just want to clarify, it doesn't mean too much of filling up forms or doing listing agreements. Those things you have learned in school, although we might touch upon it quickly here, but we will not go into detail of those aspects of working with a buyer or seller. What we are focusing today is how to generate business and how to sell to a buyer and how to list a property with a seller. So this is, as I said, this is more the marketing and business aspect of the real estate. Okay, so let's assume we will discuss about different sources of you getting business, but let's assume someone from your circle of influence, one of your friends, or one of your advertisements, whatever the source might be, someone calls you and says, I'm thinking of selling my house. Or they might say, come and let me know how much my home is worth. This is where real estate starts, because there has to be a property on the market for a buyer to go and see that property. So everything starts with a listing. So whatever the source of that call might be, if someone calls you and says, I'm thinking of listing, or I come and let me know how much my home is worth, Unfortunately, what most agents do, they just try to book the appointment right away and jump into their car, and they go to people's houses to do the so-called listing presentation. They try to get the listing. One thing we have to understand, and this is the very basics, although in the past couple of weeks we have expanded on what the listing presentation is, but I want to emphasize that listing is a two-step process. It's a two-part. You have to prepare and then you have to present. The preparation happens at your home, at your office, before you meet the client. If you don't prepare yourself, if you don't prepare the client, and if you just go for the presentation, most of the time it will not work because they're not ready, you're not confident, so things will not click. And that's why we will first talk a little bit about listing preparation. As I said, this is the foundation of all the things we are discussing, and we will move on to other topics. But basically, you should not make that mistake. You have to prepare. You have to prepare the stage, and you have to make sellers welcome you. And for that, there is a three-step process. The first step is that as soon as someone calls and says, I want to book an appointment for you to come and let me know how much my home is worth, you have to drop a package. Now, what is that package? We will talk. And then you have to pre-qualify them. And then there are tools that you should carry with you to add the listing presentation. Now, so usually what I used to do, and I still recommend to do the same, if someone calls you to list their property, you should book the appointment for the next day, not for the same day. Because you want them to receive your information, receive your package, and digest it. So somehow you will drop that package before 5 o'clock, because usually people get home 5 from their work, and you will drop the package for them to be impressed. The main intention of dropping the package is so that you have done half of the sale before you're even there in their house. Now, you're lucky because our office has already prepared this package for you. It can be in digital format. All you have to do is provide your picture. We have in-house designer. Provide your picture and provide your bio, and they will change this package for you. One of the things that you need to insert is there is a report. It's in PDF format from Toronto Real Estate Board. That is something that you can print and insert because each month it is different. Because you have, the package should focus mainly on 3 things. You have to sell the overall real estate industry, which we are part of Toronto Real Estate Board. Then you have to sell your company, and then you have to talk about yourself. Now in this package, it mainly focuses on the last 2 parts, which is selling the brokerage and selling you. For the first part, you need to insert that Toronto Real Estate Board report, which comes once a month. If you go to torontomls.net, if you log in with your authenticator, you will see the monthly reports in PDF format. Now, so this should not be the only thing you should be having. Whatever marketing material you have, you should insert inside this. Whether it is just listed, just sold, open house, or whatever advertising you have done in any magazine or newspaper, all those things should be inserted into this marketing material. Okay, so having said that, so let's say you drop this package today before 5 o'clock, sometime around 6:30ish, you will call them and you will pre-qualify. The main purpose of pre-qualifying is to give them this impression that you're not available and you're not free. You want to make sure that they have received the package, but in addition to that, you want to find out who the owner of the house is, and you want to make sure that the owner, the real owner legally is people that are on the title of the house. So they have to be at home when you get to the house. Of course, most of the information in most cases, in most listings, it is available on MLS. I think most of the information before you go for your listing, you will get it from MLS, but you want to make sure that what are the changes that were done since last time they bought. So basically, you have to engage in a conversation before you go to the house. And that conversation will help you to give you confidence, to build a basic relationship before you go to their house. And more importantly, this will build confidence in them that you are not really desperate, you're not free to come to anyone's house. You will go with pre-qualifying your clients. Okay, so some of the other information that you will end your conversation before you're letting them go are some of the documents that are required to list the property, such as property tax statements, mortgage statements, if they have a survey or their floor plan from the builder. All these documents, you will ask them to have it ready before you go to their house. And of course, the third step, and by the way, these are all done before you're going to their house, is some of the tools, such as measurement tools, note-taking tools. You have to take a filled agreement of listing agreement and MLS data form, all filled with as much information you have access to, and with all the measurements that you can get from MLS. And then once you're into their house, you will verify all those measurements and the information that you have maybe copied. So you are trying to go as prepared as possible. So one of the items, as you can see from this list, is the last one, which is the most important one, is CMA, comparative market analysis. So before going to their house, you have to prepare a comparative market analysis, which most of you have learned in the school how to do it. But here we want to emphasize that the most important factor that plays role in analyzing and evaluating a house is the location. So try to find as close as possible properties to the subject property. If it is on the same street, it is even better. If it is a neighbor's house, it is even more better. If it is exact same size, that is the best. But if you can't find exact same size neighbor's house and sold as recently as 3 months, within the last 3 months, ideally those are the kind of properties that you will be comparing with. But if you can't find, then try not to go too far. Try to find properties as close as possible, even if the size and the layout and the condition might be different, because everything boils down in real estate to location. It's about location, location, location. The rest of the things, such as condition of the house, style of the house, of course those things play a role, I mean especially size of the house, but nothing is compared to location. So try to find as close as possible. And of course, real estate is not only about location, but it is also about time. You cannot compare a property, the subject property that you're going to with some other property that is, was sold a couple of years ago. That's too long. So you will have two kind of data with you. One will be for your analysis, which should be within the past 3 months, ideally. Even past couple of months will be even better. But you want to have as much information as possible as far as a couple of years ago, because sellers might ask you questions and you have to be ready to answer those inquiries. They might be asking you, there was a house sold across from us a few months ago. They might be thinking few months ago, but it might have been last year. So you want to be prepared to answer those inquiries. You don't want to look that you don't know what's going on around the house. The more time you spend on preparing your CMA, the more confident you will be when you go to their house. And of course, one of the other things I do, and I highly recommend that you should do, that before you go to the subject property, maybe you should leave your office an hour or two before, so that you can visit some of the properties that are in the market within the immediate area of that subject property. And again, this is something that you all know because this was part of examination and part of your learning at school, that when you compare your subject property with other properties, you make adjustments depending if they're positive or negative adjustments, depending on whether one is finished basement or the other one has more than one kitchen. It depends on all kinds of variables. By the way, the numbers that are thrown here at you on this screen, it doesn't really, it's not fixed, it is not written on a stone. This will just give you an idea. People have spent not 5,000, but sometimes they spend 50,000 in their kitchen. And I have seen people spending 100,000 on their basement. This does not mean much, but just to give you an idea in case if you're comparing somewhat of a similar property. Now, before going to your listing, there is something else that you want to for sure visit before you go, and that is the land registry system. On Toronto MLS, on the top right-hand corner, as you can see on this screen, you can click on land registry. It will tell you who the owner of the property is, or owners of the property, which is very important. Legally, you have to get their signatures on the paperwork, on your listing agreement and MLS data form. So you want to make sure that these two people or three people or one person, depending who is on title, is there at the time of listing. In addition to that, in land registry, you will find impact assessment. This is the assessment from an agency called Impact, which based on this, they tax the property. This will also give you an additional information about the value of the property. So it's an interesting tool. So I think what I'm trying to say, and this will boil down this section of CMA, talking about CMA, is that you have to be very confident when you're pricing a house. That means you have to spend some time, you have to do a little bit of due diligence. It will take some efforts to come to some close to market value. No one can claim to know exactly what the value of a house is, because there is a lot of variables involved, especially emotions involved. But you want to make sure that you have done your job, you have spent enough time, and you're confident about the price that you're providing. Now, if you're interested, I used to do listing presentations, but recently I don't do it anymore because I believe that the conversation should be more natural, and you have to go with more focus on preparing your CMA and talking about different properties and discussing why those properties are compared to their house and how is it compared and what are the differences. But if for some of you, actually maybe it will be most of you, you need to have something in front of you to talk. You cannot talk without a note or without a PowerPoint or something. Then there is a PowerPoint presentation all prepared for you. You have to just change your picture and your name. Everything is almost done for you. You have to get a login for this. It is at homelife.ca. Actually, this is not the only thing. There are many other marketing material that you can find there. It is all done and available for you. If you log in as an agent, if you can see somewhere at the bottom of that screen, it is visitors login or agents login. If you don't have your login yet, get it from front staff. You will log into this system. There is tons of interesting things, including PowerPoint presentation. There is marketing material, just sold, just listed. All you have to do is just change your picture. Everything is designed by a professional designer for you. And I think the section that will be most interest for you, it's called the Resource Center. So you might want to visit there once you log in. Okay, so once we are ready, we have the three-step process that we talked about. You have sent them the package or actually dropped the package. You have called them to pre-qualify. You have prepared all your tools, especially spending some time getting your CMA done. Now is the time to go. Now, for this, your presentation is very important. What you wear, what you drive, and all those things, whether you believe in or not, is important when you go for a listing presentation. I think you have to smell good, you have to wear good things, you have to look good. These things play a role. I mean, whether it is fortunate or unfortunate, that's a different discussion, but it plays a role that you have to look good and you have to present good when you go for a listing presentation. Okay, so the first thing, once you knock on the door, once you go to a seller's house or potential seller's house, the first thing that you walk in and you will do is that you walk around the house. Now, when you walk around the house, you have to walk meaningfully. It is not just for the walk and you take a minute and go upstairs and come down. You have to spend time. So there are a couple of things for sure you have to do. And when I say for sure, because when you do this, the seller will feel obligated to give you the listing. And those two things are, you will take notes. For example, if some of the rooms need painting or they don't look good, or you want to take notes of what are the finishes in the floor. But the other important thing that you will do, if you have your measurement tool with you, you will take measurement of the rooms and measurement of different places in the house. So you will spend most of your time doing that, taking measurements. Now, before even sitting down with them, you have already impressed, and they already feel obligated because you have done something for them. So even before discussing and before doing anything, as soon as you walk in, you just go and explore the house, and you do your measurements and taking notes. So they will think that you're already starting working for them. They have called you into their house, so that's why you're doing this. And if they interrupt you and say, you know what, let's talk first about your commission, or let's talk about how much you think my property is worth, I mean, your answer should be, let me do my work, let me take measurements, let me look at the property, let me take notes, and then I can give you my professional advice. So this is something that will be really effective when you go to people's houses for listing. As I was trying to emphasize earlier, my main part of presentation will be not talking about myself or what I will do for them, because I have already sent this package. So they have already received this package a day before. They have it in their hand. They have received all my marketing material. They have it. I will have another copy on the table for them, but that will be not my focus. I will not be trying to sell myself, because I'm assuming that I've already sold myself by sending those marketing material before. What I'm going to really focus and spend most of my time is on their property and comparing it with other properties. But I have to be fully informed so that I can talk for a few minutes as to why I have come to that conclusion. So initially, you will provide them with 3 months of data that you have recently sold similar properties as close as possible, and let them decide. Give them the information and tell them, comparing your house with those houses that have recently sold, and if there is any change or any shift in the market, of course you will also remind them of that shift in the market, and let them think and give you the answer, and let them come up with the price. That is the ideal way. But of course, you have to be prepared for as far as 18 months or even a couple of years of data in your bag, so that if they ask you about the property, you know what is going on. So once either they come up with a price and say, you know what, that's what I was thinking of, or I was there about, or you provide the price, I think one of the common objections that sellers have is that, let's list it for higher. Yes, we know the property is worth, for example, $500,000, but let's try for $550 and see what happens. If they come with that kind of an objection, I think this slide is a very powerful slide, because it shows that if they list the property 10% higher than the market price, they will lose half of potential prospects coming to their house. So let's say if the property is $500,000 if they list it for 550, they will lose half of the people. They will not even come to the house. So we have to, as their agents, make them understand this concept that you have to be careful to list it higher. And the other slide that follows this, which is even more powerful, is that most of the activities happen in the first few weeks. Actually, it happens in the first 4 weeks of the listing property. So even if you reduce later on, it will not be much of a help. So first of all, you will lose quite a lot of people. And secondly, even if you reduce later, there is not much of activity. So it is rather better to list your property at market value, at the right price, so that we can sell it right away. In my opinion, if a property is listed with proper price and the condition is good, it will sell within a month. So once we get over this issue of their price, of course the other issue is commission, but I usually don't discuss too much about commission. Whatever your commission is, I will just say this is my commission. There is not much discussion about it. Whenever they ask you, you might want to be upfront about it, because at the end of the day, if they're convinced that you are the right agent, you can sell it at the highest price possible with the least amount of time. All they care is not the commission, but those two factors, that you can sell it as high as possible and within certain time limit. So if they're convinced about this, I don't have a presentation about handling commission, because I just move on. My commission is X amount or X percentage, and we move on. So you will bring up your listing agreement, which is mostly filled. You try to get as much information as possible, because in the listing agreement, the seller's name is on land registry title, so you can copy it there. The legal description is there. Some of the information you might find it from previous listings, that you can put it there. So you will have it all filled. If there is anything that needs to be changed, you can change it and initial. But the listing agreement and MLS data form are two different documents. One is about the agreement, which is mainly how much is your commission and how long is this listing agreement. And the MLS data form is the detail about the property. So what are the inside finishes, what are the measurements of inside rooms, what is the outside made of, all those details of property. You can usually copy it from previous listings. You can do that, but make sure that you verify when you're at their house. Okay. I think one thing that I want you to understand on this MLS data form, that MLS.ca, which is a public website, which most of the potential buyers go to that website to see properties, they only see the first two remarks. There are 3 remarks in MLS data form. It is for the client, extras, but there is also a remark for brokerage. That section usually doesn't come for in MLS.ca, so make sure whatever you want people to see, potential buyers to see, it is in the first 2 remarks. It is either the clients or extras. One of the things I add in extras is, it's important, is the transportation. Is it accessible to transportation? Because these days, transportation has become one of the selling features, or one of the best selling features of selling a property. Before you leave their house, you want to leave them with showing instructions. So some of the common things might be that if possible, you should not be at home when potential buyer comes in, or you should not cook, or you should keep the house clean. You can get the whole list from the same website, homelife.ca. There is a list. You can print it on magnet, or you can print it on a regular paper. It is your choice, but you have to leave them with some kind of instruction about showing property, and make sure that they understand that this is a teamwork. If they want the property to sell, they have to play as with this your system. One of the things that, or probably the best advice that the agent can give to their client is the way the house looks, to make it look better, either with some cosmetic renovations, for example, painting, or fixing little things that are chipped off around the house, or hiring a stager to stage the property. Those are the two features, or the best advice that a selling agent can give, a listing agent can give to a seller to sell the property faster. Now, for renovations, you might have some contacts, because usually sellers don't feel comfortable working with a contractor. So try to find, as part of your team, a contractor that you can work with, you're comfortable with, and you can refer that contractor to your client. So to summarize what we have discussed so far is that this process of selling a house is a teamwork, and some of the things are not even in your control. For example, location of the property, whether it is in a good or a bad area, you cannot do much about it. So you have to work out with the location. Or financing situation. If the interest rate is 3% or 5% or 20%, whatever it is, you cannot change that much. Of course, seller plays a role. They're part of the team. They have to be helping you with the condition of the property. The value of the house is not really in your hand or seller's hand. Of course, seller has the control to list the property for whatever the price they want. They can list it 10, 20, whatever % higher. But at the end of the day, the property sells at market value. The only thing that you do is mainly, or not the only, but the main focus of this teamwork for a real estate agent is marketing. And we are all lucky that most of the marketing is done for all of us, because most of these properties sell through MLS system. So as soon as you list it on MLS system, there are more than 30,000 agents that are working for you to sell it. So since this is building block, there are some of the basic things we have to let you know. That once you list a property, you have to drop all the documents to office. They will upload your listing on MLS system. If you want to upload it yourself, you can get access from front staff, but you have to also let them know the showing instruction. For example, if there is a lockbox, what is the lockbox code, or the timing that they can show. One of the other things that you should do is call a sign company to install sign for you. Actually, not install the sign, install the post. You have to get your own sign. Now, for the sign, if you go with a generic one, just the name of the company and phone number, it's much cheaper. If you want your picture, it's a little bit more expensive. So the least of the things that you need to do is the lockbox. Usually, we prefer lockbox because we don't want them to be at home, or even when they are at home, if there is a lockbox, it will give you the flexibility of showing. So it is better to install a lockbox and install a post and a sign. There are companies, actually the lockbox, you can buy it from any hardware company like Home Hardware or Home Depot, those places. They even, I think, might be selling it at Business Depot. But the sign, there are quite few sign companies. The one that we work with is called Chaplin Signs. So you call them, they install the post. And of course, you have to initially have your own sign and print them and order them. Okay, so talking about marketing, when you list a property, it automatically goes onto MLS system, which is one of the best systems that sells a house. In addition, it goes to homelife.ca. We promote it on KGG. The front staff does that for you automatically. In addition to those internet options, which happens automatically and you don't have to do much, of course, KGG, you can also do it yourself, because the more you promote the property, the more the chances that people will see it. If you're interested, which I will highly recommend, is to do a just listed. So basically, we'll print 100 postcards, which should not cost you more than $20, $25, that you have just listed a property, and you will go in the neighborhood that you have listed the property. I recommend at least 100 copies. So on the same street and then to the neighboring streets as close as possible. This will show some activity on your part that you're trying to sell the property. You might as well prepare a feature sheet, which is what feature sheet is. It has some pictures of the property with the information of the property. When potential buyers walk into the house and come to the house, they can receive those feature sheets. Of course, newspaper and magazine ad and other things are all optional. You can try them, but usually, as I said, most properties are sold through MLS system. We will talk about in detail open house actually in one of these third weeks, probably in the month of June. If you have not yet registered, you can go to homelifedreams.ca and click on weekly training. You will see the schedule. I think one of the weeks we talk in detail for 2 hours about how to do effective open houses. But of course, you can do open houses as we were talking about the sign. One of the interesting things that I used to do, and at that time there was no do not call list. I don't know how many of you are familiar with do not call list. This came about a few years ago from federal government that due to privacy laws you cannot call people's houses. Oh, sorry, actually, if they have listed on the list do not call list, you cannot call them. So for that, to be careful, you have to buy a do not call list, which costs about for 3 months it's about $500-600. Some agents group together and buy that, and then when I started creating my database of buyers, there was no do not call list. So I used to call the neighborhood and say, I've just listed the property. Do you know anyone who might be interested? So I know most of the people don't know anyone that will be moving to the area, but this was a really nice breaking the ice conversation tool. So I used this tool very effectively and built my database of people that will be interested, that they might be selling or buying. This is an excuse to call people. But these days, in order to do that, you have to have do not call list. Yes, so I think I have said this few times by now that most of the properties, as you can see, we can do all these different activities from open houses to internet marketing, but most of the properties are sold through MLS system, usually by another real estate agent. So MLS is really effective, and it should sell your property within 30 days in any market. If you have professional pictures, because professional pictures increase the number of people that visit the property 3 times, if it is priced right, if it shows well, and if it is accessible. So if your client is not really flexible about showing the property, for example, they only show within certain times, or they need long notices, or they don't show on weekends, those things will affect the selling of your property. So MLS is a very effective system. I would say even a good property will sell within a couple of weeks. 30 days is a stretch. If you price it right, if it shows well, it will sell itself. So yes, as I was saying earlier, you can upload the listing yourself if you want to, or you can bring the paperwork and the office will do it for you. One of the things that unfortunately agents don't do, and you hopefully will not make this mistake, is that you want to update your client once a week. That day of the week should usually be either Monday or Tuesday, because most of the activity is on weekends. Showings are mostly on weekends. So you want to follow up with agents that have shown the property, and you want to update your client. So now updating is not only about showing, but it could be also about activities that are happening in the area. For example, you will check out the neighborhood, and there is a recent property that just came up, and it is exact same property or very similar property with much lower listing price. So you want to let your client know that we have a competition now, which is 20, 30 or whatever thousand less than your our listing. You want to update them, and it's very important that that you keep them up to date. Otherwise, they will think that you have ignored them. Especially if the property doesn't sell, they will be mad at you. You will not have a good relationship, and once that they have a bad image of you, even if the property sells, even if they get a high price, it will be hard that they will give you referral because they're not happy with you. So all you have to do is just once a week call them and give them some update, or just say, you know what, we will try it another week and we will then adjust the price. Whatever the case might be, you should be in contact at least once a week with your client. And if there is any changes that needs to be made to a listing, it has to be done properly through amendment. They cannot just tell you, you know what, go and change the price by 10,000. There is a paperwork that needs to be done, and it's called amendment to listing. I'm sure these documents are talked about in your school. You know about it, but if still you need help, talk to me or one of the staff. Now, this is another idea that will help you to get more leads from your listing, is that once you sold a property, you want to distribute just sold cards in the same houses that you have done the just listed. So you're targeting the same people for the second time. At least 100 postcards, if not more. This should be done by door knocking, by you walking around. What I also used to do is that I used to have the average price of the area within that small neighborhood, and what was the highest price and the lowest price for the past 1 month. You want to give a little bit of information with that just sold postcard when you're distributing them. Not, I really don't believe too much into newsletters because people don't have time to read them, and if they're interested to read something, everything is available these days on the internet. So but I think a summary, something that they can just look at and get an idea what's going on in their market might be helpful. Okay, so this is the end of a presentation about working with a seller. There is a lot to cover, and we have only about an hour to go. Is there any question? Those of you that are watching us online, please call the office number 416-510-3000, and front staff will bring your question to me. And those of you that are sitting here, is there any question what we have discussed so far or clarification? Yeah.
Yes. Where do you find the adjustment on the bathroom, bedrooms and things like that? Is it a book? Is it internet access? How do you establish these adjustments?
Okay, that's a very good question. The question from the floor here in our boardroom is, how can you find the pricing for adjustments? For example, if you're comparing different upgrades. I think to answer that question, it is very hard because we are not a contractor. It will be not easy to compare and find comparison for those pricing. But there are two tools that might help you and give you a rough estimate. Number one is that you will compare different properties that were sold that were similar, and then the difference in price was because of few upgrades. So that is a little bit vague. This second option, which is more a little bit more clearer, is there is a booklet that is printed every couple of years. It is by Toronto Commercial Division, Toronto Real Estate Board Commercial Division. It's called Rough Estimate of Building Costs or Building Material. It's a detailed book about different pricing. You have to buy it. I don't know how much it will cost, but that will also help you to get some ideas how much each material is and what is the cost of different things. But I think there might be a third option too. You can easily Google or call contractors and say, you know what, if you upgrade the kitchen in this house from normal countertop to granite, how much will it cost? They will give you a rough idea. So you can either call some of the contractors. There is a book that is published by Toronto Real Estate Board Commercial Division that you can get, you have to buy, Or you can look at the previous listings and compare similar properties with one having the upgrade and one not having the upgrade. That will also give you a rough idea. Is there any other question?
One more is how you convince the seller to publish the house, the address, the price of just the sold property. What you come with to help him, because it's a privacy issue here, right? So you have to convince him to agree to list this information publicly on just sold.
Okay, that's another good question. So another question from the floor is, just I'm repeating the question so those of you that are watching online understand what the question is. The question is that due to privacy laws, the information about the property, if we can print it on just sold card, what we can print and what we can't, and how we can deal with the privacy issues and how comfortable the seller will feel. I think for everything that we have to do, we have to have seller's consent. So sometimes a seller might not be happy about printing a just sold card. So you want to make sure that the seller is aware of it and you're doing it, because they might not want their neighbor to know. And the second thing, which is kind of a direct policy, there is a policy kind of established, or at least this is the norm of the market, that no one prints how much it was sold for. They usually say the percentage of the listing price. For example, 100% of asking price or 98% of asking price. And that percentage is published on Toronto MLS for realtors, of course. Once you upload your listing and then you sell it, it will say what was the percentage it was sold. Or you can calculate it very easily through your calculator. So usually you will publish the percentage of asking price. So first of all, the seller should be aware of it, and they should be okay with it, and you should not print the price, the actual sold price.
Any special way of doing convince him to agree with that, or to
agree?
What you come up with?
To print the just sold?
With the seller. How you convince them?
Oh, okay.
To agree to print out this.
Yeah, I see. That's also another good question. Saying that how can you convince some sellers that they may not be interested to do the just sold card? I think if you have a good relationship, and if you have nurtured your relationship through the process of listing, and if you have done a good job, and if they are happy with you, usually if you ask them, can you help me because this will help me to get more listings, I think most people don't mind to help you. Yes, there might be some odd people here and there saying that, you know what, regardless, I don't want to do it, and you should not do it unless they consent. But I think it boils down to our relationship with our clients. If we have established a good relationship, if we have updated them on weekly basis, at least if we have kept in touch, if they're happy with what we have done, if we have shown professionalism, most people are more than happy to help you. Yeah, I think it depends on the type of relationship that you have established so far in the process. Okay, so let's move on to the other interesting section and working with the buyer. And I think the last section is the most important one, and I want to have some time to talk about that one, which is about actually doing business. Okay, so either from your sign or from your advertisement, or someone referred you, or one of your friends, whatever the reason might be, actually we will discuss about some sources of getting leads, both for buyers and sellers, a little bit later at the end of the session. But for now, let's assume that someone calls you or emails you or contacts you, and they want you to find them a house to sell. We will walk you through a step-by-step how this process works, the same way that we have done for the listing presentation, that it is a two-section, two-part, but each one is a three-step process. We have discussed about it. The same way now we will walk you through working with a buyer. Don't forget that this is foundational course. This is building block for your career. So that's why we're going through most of the basics. Unfortunately, even most experienced agents forget about these basics, and that's why they don't get too far in their career. It will be a good refreshment for those of you that are watching us and you're experienced. So the first step is that if someone calls you and they want to buy a house, ideally you want them to come to your office. Because again, the same mistake that most agents make with sellers, they repeat similar mistake with working with a buyer. If someone calls, they say, oh, I'm looking for a house, they jump into their car and they go and show houses. That will leave a very bad impression of you with the buyer, because they say, you know what, this guy did not even ask me properly what I'm looking for, how much am I qualified for. He is so desperate, just wants to come and show me houses. He has all the time in the world, had nothing to do, so he's just coming to show me houses. So you want them to come to your office if they're serious. If they're not serious, I mean, that's a different issue, but if they're serious, they will come. If they're buying a $500,000, $400,000, $300,000 property, they better be taking this seriously and coming to the office to discussing about it. Coming to the office will also help that you will impress them. That, although they might think that you're just an agent, coming to the office, they will see that there is a reception here, there are boardrooms here, you're part of a bigger picture, you're working for a firm. It will give them more trust and confidence in you. So it is much better that you meet them in the office rather than outside at a cafe. And I think the last one is the most important one. It is that you have to meet them so that you know how to handle them. Each person's personality is different. Each client is different. Their expectations are different. And more importantly, how you react to what they say, and your responses should be different for different personalities. There are tons of books, if not hundreds, at least tens of books written about this topic. That there are 4 personalities in the world. This applies to everyone. I will not talk about, but because we can talk about this for hours and hours about this slide, about different personalities, but it is divided into 4 different categories. So people are either D or I or C or S personalities. A D personality is someone who is very demanding. These are usually in the range of 10% of the population, 10% of the people that you will come across. They might not come across very nice people. I mean, internally they might be very nice and very good people, but they're very demanding, they're very dominant, they want to dominate the conversation, they're bossy. The other type of people, which is a good chunk of people, are very engaging and involved and illogical. These are more fun people. They don't take life seriously, as opposed to the first category that they take life very seriously. So if you know people's personality by spending some time with them, you know how to handle them. You know whether when you're showing a house you want to be more fun or you want to be more serious. The third type of personality are people, which is in the range of 20% of people. They're very calculative. That means they're very cautious. They're to the point. They will study everything you give them, all the material you give them. They read, they go through it. They will even find your mistakes. They're very precise. And the last type of people are usually nice, and they cannot say no to you. They're very shy people. They want everyone to like them. They're happy people. Of course, not as happy as the first type, but these are more reserved back people. They're very nice. What you can see from this breakdown is that if you add I and S, that represents 60-65% of the population. These are mostly people that are emotional. They make decisions based on emotions, either because they're very relaxed. The I people are very relaxed and illogical, or the S type of people, which are shy. The both type are very highly emotional people. The dominant and calculative people are mainly going with numbers, but so majority of your clients will be making their decisions based on emotions. And so for that very reason, and I will not do a justice by explaining these four type of personalities within a minute or two. As I said, there are books, tons of books written about this topic. If you're a salesperson in any field, that you go through this kind of training, especially in bigger firms. We will not spend too much time here, but I think the least you should know is that you want to see them in the office, spend some time so that you know their personality and you can react accordingly. So before even they come to the office, when you try to call them, if they call you or you call them or they leave a number or they email you, the first thing you might want to do is to get their contact information. And one of the first questions that you should ask is, are they working with a real estate agent? If they're already working and if they have already signed up with another agent, you don't want to waste your time. You don't want to be in conflict. And you have to ask that difficult question because you want to work with people that are genuine, that will not ditch you down the road. So you have to make sure that they are not working with another real estate agent, and you will also ask them about a little bit about what they're looking for. Now this is all happening on the phone. Remember, we did a pre-qualifying for listing. We called the client. So in this case, we are doing exact same thing. You have to pre-qualify your buyer. You have to ask them what they're looking for so that you're prepared when you see them in person. You can maybe print some of the listings that meet their criteria in different areas or in the area that they have specified. You want to also ask these other couple of questions. How long have they been looking for a house? Because if they have been looking for this past 6 months and they have been through 600 houses, you know that they might be C-type personality. That means they're really precise and they're seeing so many things. It is not easy to make decision. It is better that you have this information before they come to the buyer presentation, if we want to call it that. And also the last information that you want to know if they're pre-approved, because if they're not, you can, as part of your team, you can work with a mortgage broker and you can bring in that meeting a mortgage broker. Because one of the things that a mortgage broker can do is to pre-qualify them and hold the interest for 90 days, or some banks even allow up to 120 days. Okay, so preparing the same way that we did our CMA, if you remember from the listing, working with a seller, you have to do the same way. Before you meet them, you have to do some research. You have to find as many houses as possible within their criteria. Sometimes the location is important, so you will try to find as many as possible houses within that location. Sometimes it is not the location, it is the size or type of home that is important. So you will look outside that geographical location, try to find in some other neighborhoods properties that they are looking for. And if they are not pre-approved, or if they are not working with a bank, or if they are not working with a mortgage broker, you want to call your mortgage broker that you're working with. Let them come to the meeting too. That will help. Okay, so you also have to prepare a package. Now, we had this package for seller. There is also same package for buyer. All you have to do is change your picture. This is an interesting package because it tells your prospect or potential buyer what are the things that you will do for them and why should they buy with you. It is all done. It is very standard. You will not change anything. And most importantly, it will show that you're part of a team. Everything is done for you. All you have to do is change your picture and change your bio. So some of the documents that you want to have inside that package is, of course, working with a realtor. You guys have been through this in school, that you're required to disclose and explain agency relationship. Buyer representation agreement, basically it is similar to listing agreement, that they will be your client. Sometimes we might prefer to have a customer relationship. I'm sure you guys know the difference. One, you have more fiduciary duty with the buyer representation. You have, of course, most of the fiduciary duties with the customer too, but there are some differences that we cannot get into detail now. But if someone is calling from your listing, your own house that you're selling, and they want to buy that house, your own listing, most of the agents prefer to sign a customer relationship, which means the seller is their client and the buyer is their customer, just to avoid conflict of interest. You're in a little bit better position if the buyer is your customer when you're selling your own house. But otherwise, generally and normally, you want to sign a buyer representation agreement, which basically says you will be their agent for the next X amount of time, like for the next 2 months or for the next 3 months, within Toronto or within Markham or within GTA or whatever you want to say. There is also, you should also have a buyer questionnaire. Some of the questions I will put it on the next slide that you should ask them. You have already pre-qualified and asked some of the questions. There are more that are coming. So the questions that you have asked before, based on those questions, you will print some of the properties that meet their criteria or that might meet their criteria. So when they're coming, it is almost same thing as the listing presentation. You want to take as many notes as possible. For each client, you should have a file. We should handle this business professionally. So, for example, some of the questions that you can bring up in your conversation is, how much has bank approved you? Now, sometimes the bank might approve us for a really high amount, but how much you can really afford, because a bank might approve you for $1 million, but you may not be able to afford that kind of money. One of the things that will keep them loyal to you and keep them attached to you is that if you can promote this, that if you work with a mortgage broker, you can keep the rates hold for the next 90 days or 120 days. So for example, if today's rate is 3%, a mortgage broker can hold that amount till you find your home for the next 90 days. That is something that will help them. So if the interest rates go higher, they will get the lower rate. If it goes lower, they will go with the lower rate. It is a really good tool that unfortunately most buyers do not utilize. You want to also know that if they own a house or if they rent a house. Remember, I think I have discussed this in my previous session. We want to always act as an advisor, not as a salesperson. So when you're asking them whether they own a house or they rent a house, you want to help them that if they're renting, they might be, or most probably, they will be required to give 60 days notice to their landlord, so that they're aware of it, so that they know. If they own a house, then you will ask them, have you listed in the market, or when are you thinking of listing? Should we buy first or should we sell first? By the way, buying and selling depends which one to do first on the market, but one of the tools that you should be aware of is bridge financing. So let's say if buying a house and selling do not close on the same day, banks provide you with something called bridge financing, and you can talk to your mortgage broker to give them more detailed information. But basically, it creates a bridge between the time that these two properties do not close at the same time. So your client might be paying 2 mortgages for the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks, depending on the closing. So that's called bridge financing. And the last, but probably not the least important question to ask is, if I find you what you're looking for, when will you be thinking of moving? If they're thinking of moving in a couple of years or even in 6 months, maybe your conversation should shift and ask why, and why are they looking for properties now? Some of the other things that as a real estate agent you should know, these are very basic things, and it is the type of properties that are available in the market. So some of the agents, even some of the experienced agents, make mistake thinking that a single family home means a detached home. There are so many different types of single family home. It is bungalows, one story, different split levels. Even a semi or linked home is a single family. Even a townhouse is a single family. It means one family will live in that property. What makes a single family different from duplex? A duplex is a property that is legally zoned for two families to live. So this is a two different type of things. So if a property has a basement and there are two families living, one upstairs and one in the basement, it does not necessarily mean it is a duplex. Duplex is a zoning that is given by a municipality to a piece of land or piece of property that runs with the property. It's a zoning. It's the type of zoning that is given. It means this property could be occupied by two different family units. If you make 2-3 different units, it doesn't mean that it complies with the zoning. There is another type of property. Well, actually, it is not type. It's a legal term. It's called condominiums. And again, when we say condominiums or condos, we think mainly high-rise buildings. Even a detached home as part of a development could be condos. Some of these condominiums are called common elements condos, which means they share the lane or they share picking up the garbage, or somebody just comes and cleans the snow from the roadway. So there are full condos, which means it involves every aspect of handling. It is common elements condos. So these are some of the basic things that you should be aware of when dealing with buyers and when they ask you what is better. Now, I think when it comes to condos and homes, it boils down to their lifestyle. I mean, when you live in a condo, there is less responsibility. For those of you that own a house, you know there are more responsibilities when you're living in a house. Some of us like to be close to nature, close to land. Some of us want some of the facilities that condos have, such as gyms and fitness centers and other things. So it depends. I think the difference between condominium and home is mainly depending on their lifestyle. Well, the second thing these days is the location. Maybe they cannot find within their budget a house, for example, in downtown Toronto. So they like to go to a home, part of their lifestyle, but they're forced to buy a condo because it is a home is outside their budget. The other common questions that these buyers in the conversation, by the way, these are all the topics that might come up in a conversation that when you're sitting down with a potential buyer and you should be prepared for, is whether should I buy a new home or a resale home. I think there are a couple of differences. There is tons of differences, but these couple are probably more prominent, is that in a resale or an older home, most of the time it is an established neighborhood. Most of the time amenities are there. They just move in. Everything is nice and quiet. And usually the trees are mature. In a new subdivision, everything is new. And it is also possible might be sound of construction going around in that area. Or I think what really makes a difference for me is that a pre-construction home. When you buy a pre-construction home, they give you a layout of a house on a paper. Honestly, I cannot feel what is going on the paper. So when someone comes to me and says, should I buy a brand new pre-construction or a resale home, I will never buy a pre-construction home, because I don't know. I mean, how can you feel a home from a paper? I mean, you can see the measurements, but the actual feeling comes when you see the actual property. So those are some of the things. And actually, there is an additional thing when you buy a brand new home. Although these days, most builders provide you with appliances, but you might be paying cash for buying curtains and some other decorations that are needed for the house. Whereas in a resale home, those things already come with it. And again, these are all the conversation. as part of your conversation sitting down with a client, and you should know some of these basics, especially in the area that they're looking for. Now, there is a lot of information for you available, especially on cmhc.ca. They provide you all this free information. As you can see on that screen, those are some of the samples of flyers that you can change your picture, and you can give those handouts. You just print it from your computer and give it to your client. It is about tips of buying, about mortgages, what is the step-by-step process, what is closing cost. They have tons of these flyers that you simply print. Actually, it can print, it can customize with your picture. So it will allow you to upload your picture. You just print those flyers and give it to your clients. There are videos too that you can send those video links to your client. These are all educational material. Actually, at this stage, for some of you that are just out of school, it might be helpful even for you to visit that site, cmhc.ca/the resource. You will find tons of information that is about practical aspect of real estate. So I will highly encourage. But in future, whenever you have a client, you might want to print, and as part of your folder, maybe you can give an article or two about this to your client when they leave, when you sit down with them, because there is a lot of nice information that a buyer should be aware. Actually, there are other information about renovation that might relate to your seller. When you visit this site, you will find out. So after sitting down with your client and having a good conversation, having a good feeling of their personality, having a good feeling of their expectation, and knowing what they're looking for, if you're already an experienced agent, you already know this, but if you're brand new, there is a site called torontomls.net. When you become part of Organized Real Estate, you go to Toronto Real Estate Board, you get their authenticator. With that authenticator, you can log into Toronto MLS, and this is a database of all houses that are available in the market through MLS. That means other agents, more than 30,000 agents in Toronto Real Estate Board that have listed properties. You can search on different criteria. It's not very difficult, but at the beginning, if you need a help, ask one of the front staff. They will be helping you. Basically, for example, you say, I'm looking in this specific area with this range of pricing. I'm looking for a specific style of a house or number of bedrooms, and all the listings in that area within that price range and the criteria that you have provided will come up. So we cannot walk through this now because some of the people that are watching us or that are here, they might already know about this, but if you're brand new, then you can ask one of the staff and they will be able to help you. So once you find the properties that they're looking for, you have to show obviously those properties. Now, this is very basic information, but because some of you might be new, you should know. You call the other brokerage, you book an appointment for the time you want to show. Usually it is a range of 1 hour, but some of the showings could be half an hour. That means they tell you to come within that hour to see the house. You will receive the confirmation through our office. So they will call us and then they will page you through your system, through your cell phone. You will receive a text. Some of them might say use a lockbox, some of them might say go direct, but most of the time it is using a lockbox. And you should know how to use a lockbox. Basically it is a combination of digits usually. Sometimes it is letters that some of us might have schooled in. We have used it in high school, that you go right and left and then it's a combination of three letters. But you should be familiar with some of the basic things, especially when you're starting. Your confidence level may not be high, and you don't want to be embarrassed in front of your client, not knowing how to open a lockbox. So you might want to see some of these properties, especially if you're starting, before even you show it to your potential client. Okay, so now you'll show them houses. There was a report, I think, a couple of days ago that they have surveyed buyers, and they usually go on average through 10 houses before selecting a house. So on average, you will show them maybe those 10 houses it might take 2 times or 3 times. You should not book more than 5 houses at a time. It gets confusing. Ideally, 3 properties are nice. If you should narrow it down, taking all their criteria, narrow it down to 3 best that you think are the best, and then maybe those 10 properties on average will take you 2 days or 3 days. Well, some people might look at tons of properties before selecting, and some of them might look on a couple of properties and they might select a property. But on average, they will look at 10 properties. So once they select a property, you know what to do. Put an offer, and it is called agreement of purchase and sell. And again, we will not go through technical aspect of this. There are so many fields to be filled, and you know them. But basically, it is about the price, how much is the deposit, your conditions, which means this is just an offer and it is conditional on certain things happening. Those 2 conditions that are really that needs to be, well, not needs to be, but is mostly in most of the agreement of purchase and sale, is financing and inspection. That it is conditional on those 2 conditions. What you want to include and exclude, and when is the closing of the property. One of the clauses that you might want to consider to add is vacant possession. Especially the problem comes when a property is tenanted. So let's say if the house is tenanted, or if the basement is tenanted and the tenants do not move out, or if the seller has not given proper notice, there might be a problem if the tenants do not move out of the property. So by the way, since we are here, let me tell you, if you're selling a property, if you're listing, make sure to let your sellers know that they have to give 60 days notice. This is required. If they're month to month, if they're on a lease, you cannot remove a tenant unless their lease expires. Even at the end of their lease, they need another 60 days notice. So this is part of the requirement. Of course, if a tenant willingly, voluntarily says, you know what, whenever you want to sell, I will go out, that's a different issue. But if you want to play by the rules, you should know the rules, and you should also inform your clients about these rules. So once you have a signed offer, you have to call the other agent's office and register an offer. This is part of the process. So you have to make sure that you have a signed offer. If your client says, you know what, we will put an offer on this, that's not good enough. You have to have it on the paper that they have signed, and then you will call the other office and say, I have an offer for your property and I'm registering an offer. The main purpose of registration is that the other agent is informed, but also, let's say if there is more than one offer, the other agent is obligated to disclose to you that there is more than one offer, and they have to keep you informed of if there is a multiple offer situation. And try your best to present an offer as opposed to sending by fax, because if you present in person, the potential of it happening is higher as opposed to sending it by fax, because you meet the agent in person, you meet the seller in person, so it is better to do an offer presentation. This is about quite a lot of commission, so it is worth your time to go in person and do offer presentation. Now, when you go for offer presentation, one thing that you should remember is that try not to have any other commitment right after your appointment. Because in any type of negotiation, and it applies to real estate, most of the negotiation happens at the end of your negotiation. As they say, 80-20 rule applies, which means in the last 20 minutes of your negotiation, 80% of terms are negotiated and things happen. So if you're very tight on time, you will be not negotiating properly. You will not do a good job for your client. In case of multiple offer representation, for those of you that have not been through this, you should understand that all these offers are registered, and they are usually presented on the basis of who registered first, and usually the owner of the property goes through these offers. Either they accept one, pick one, or give them all back. It depends on the price. It depends on the owner. In hot markets, sometimes in hot areas, multiple offers happen, and you should be aware of it. One of the things that you should know, nobody will bring two clients, the buyer and the seller, on the same table. It might happen at the end. If you bring them at the beginning, it's not a good idea for negotiation. You go on behalf of your client to the seller with the seller's representative sitting on the table, and you talk about the offer. If you bring everybody on the board, everyone has egos. It might, in most scenarios, it will create problems. So you never want to do that, to bring clients on the same table. Of course, for a handshake, you can bring them together, and once a property is signed, it is called a binding contract. They cannot change their mind. One of the things that new agents do not understand, they think it is just a piece of paper you sign. Once you sign, it is too late to change your mind, especially once the deal becomes firm. You're signing on something, it's binding. Once you sign an agreement, remember, we are walking you through step by step, especially this is for those of you that are just new, and we will quickly get into the main part of this presentation, which is about finding new business and new leads. So once you sign an agreement, most of the brokerages, if not all, require you to bring a certified check. So you will inform your client to prepare a certified check, and they will bring it to the listing brokerage. Either you can take it or they can take it. You can give them the address. Make sure that you get a copy and bring it to the office. And on that note, if our office do not accept any normal check, we have to have either money order or certified check if you have our listing. So on agreement of purchase and sale, where it says deposit, at the bottom of it, it says buy negotiable check. Make sure to cross negotiable and make it certified. And both parties have to initial that. So once the deal is done, remember to bring all these documents that are listed on this screen with you to the office. There is quite a lot of things that you have to bring from your client, information, IDs, and there are forms that needs to be filled. If any of this is missing, you will not get your paycheck, because it is part of the requirement that every file has to be complete. So you have to bring all these documents to the front staff. Now, usually these offers are conditional on two conditions. The mortgage, usually it is within 5 days. If they don't get a mortgage, then the deal falls apart. Or if the property is inspected and the property doesn't go through, there is some problems in the property. So these are the very two common conditions that is in the property, to inspect the property and to get financing. After 5 days, well, when I say 5 days, this is norm and common. It could be 3 days or it could be 7 or 10 days. But after the conditional period, you have usually three options. So either you will waive the conditions, which means you remove the condition and the deal is firm, or you will amend, which means you will change, which means, let's say you change the price because the roof is gone, or you want them to fix things. When you prepare an amendment, one thing you should know, that the seller can change their mind and sell it to someone else, because an amendment is like a counter offer. Do you know what I'm saying? So you have to be a little bit careful when you are playing with amendment. So your client might say, you know what, I want this house, but let's try to get things fixed. Once you send an amendment, it is like a counter offer. So the seller can back out, and now the ball is not in your court. So be careful using amendment. Or you can send a mutual release. Now, mutual release is a document that will say, I want my deposit money back. I don't want this house because I didn't get my mortgage, or or the home inspector said this is not a good property to buy. One thing that you should keep in mind, that on mutual release, if you don't write anything, the brokerage will write the check to the buyer's name. And usually the buyer is husband and wife. And most of the time, husbands and wives do not have a common account. So when they write a check in the name of two people, it will create a problem. What you want to do, there is a section that says payable to, so make it payable to the name of the person that you want to payable. Okay, it should be. It could be one of the buyers or both of them, depends what account they want it to be payable to. And as part of the process, once the deal is firm and binding, the office prepares a trade record sheet. In this trade record sheet, it gives details of how much commission you will receive and about the property information. Make sure that all the information on this sheet is according to what you are looking for, because sometimes the front staff might make a mistake, sometimes the other brokerage might make a mistake, sometimes you might have changed your commission and you did not inform our office, so we don't know what is going on. So make sure, because according to this paper you will get paid. So before you sign it, make sure that all the information is correct. So the deal is done and firm. It will be closing in future. Although this is not your duty, but as a courtesy, you want to remind your client that they should get a home insurance, because no bank will close a property without insurance. They can call their existing insurance company, or you can refer them one or two, whatever the case might be, they need to get home insurance. So the final thing is that you want to make sure you can call the lawyer or you can coordinate with your client, and you want to make sure that the lawyer have received the instructions, they have contacted your client, and all those good things are happening. By the way, most of this lawyer contact is done through our office too. The front staff tries to do most of the things, but as an agent, you want to make sure that your client is comfortable. One of the common mistakes that most lawyers complain about is that most of the buyers are not informed about the closing cost. They are surprised. They think it is 5% down payment or 10% down payment, and they think that is all there is to the closing. Whereas there is a lot of more expensive costs. The biggest one is land transfer tax, especially if you're in Toronto. These days you have to pay 2 taxes. So there is a lot of other expenses that you should let your client know. And that's why some of those handouts that are on CMHC site, it helps to educate your client to understand the closing costs and different aspects of buying a home. Our paydays are every Friday, but also remember, because some of you call the office and push the front staff. If they don't receive your check on Thursday by 12 o'clock, usually then you have to wait for another week to receive your paycheck. We do this once a week. We cannot do it in between a week. So if we receive anything up to Thursday 12 o'clock, we will process it. Otherwise, it will be next week. Okay? Now, before going to the next section, this is the last item that can generate, again, as I was trying to say at the beginning, it depends on your personality. If you're people's people, this is one of the good tools that you can utilize to get more leads. I'm sure you guys are aware of housewarming party. So when someone buys a house with you, you can pay for the expenses of inviting their friends, inviting their neighbors, having a party one day. Sometimes you can co-host this with a mortgage broker. Maybe the mortgage broker will pay half of the cost and you can take half of the cost. But basically, this is your opportunity to meet other people, their contacts, and they will be proud to introduce you as their agent, because you have done this for them. So this is a very good idea. Usually it doesn't have to be very expensive party. I mean, I have seen housewarming parties that they just bring a pocket or few bags of chips and drinks, and that's it. That's housewarming party. Whatever you want to do, it doesn't have to be very expensive and fancy. You're just trying to invite the neighbors and get them together, and you have an opportunity to meet these people. Now, if you're not doing a housewarming party, I will suggest that you give them some good permanent gift. Not a gift that it will be used, for example, not a pizza or something that will be gone. You want to give them something that they will remember, that will remind them of you. It is in their house. They will be remembering that you have given them this gift. Okay, so now before I move to the last section, which I have only 20 minutes, I will quickly ask you guys to take a note. These are some of the things, especially if you're a new agent, these are some of the things that you should do to start your career. You should take a professional picture, not by your sister or by your aunt, or it has to be done professionally with a professional camera, not by iPhone. You have to spend some money to take a professional picture. Because that picture will be used from your business cards to your brochures, to your website, everywhere. Prepare your business card. Of course, that is a basic need. When you go for a showing, they need your business card. Prepare your profile. Now, what is a profile? Basically, as I said on this brochure, it is a bio of yours. You have to give some basic information about what you do, what have you done, what's your experiences, and how that experience relates to the buyer or seller. How can it help? It's a paragraph or two. It doesn't have to be too long. Basically, it is your resume in paragraph format. But you need to have this because when people go on your website or read your brochure, they want to know a little bit about you and what you have done and what you have achieved. So you have to do that. Website, now website could be passive or active. I mean, you can pay people as low as maybe a couple of $100 to prepare you a passive website, which is just your picture and information about you. There are companies that charge you monthly fees to have active websites, which they constantly update listings. They have listings that people can come there and search. They have access to all those sources. But it's not very expensive. You, in this day and age and time, you should have a website if you're serious about this. These are not expensive items that I have listed here. Some of the basic things that you should have. You should print signs, which is, for the post when you list a property. As I don't know if you have all been to Toronto Real Estate Board's orientation. It is mandatory. You have to go. They need you to go. So hopefully, if you have not yet been, you will go soon to that orientation class. Some of the things that office will need from you is that you should provide them with your email, cell phone number, and HST number. If you have not yet received your printer login, get from the front staff, because if you come to the office, you cannot print if you don't have a login. You should get your homelife.ca login, because there is tons of marketing material there that you can use, from listing presentations to postcards to flyers. You can find it there. We also promote you on our brokerage website, homelifedreams.ca. You have to email your picture to front staff and they will do it for you. If you have not yet done your buyer and seller package, as I was showing this buyer and seller package, make sure that you do this. The digital format will be emailed to you. Basically, all you have to do is send your bio and your picture, and our in-house graphic designer will do it for you. And you will receive it in PDF format, and you can print as many as you want. So most of the things we have already done for you. Your listing presentation is already on homelife.ca. And I think for any business, you need to have a database. Even you have to start that database from somewhere. So if someone tells you, I'm thinking of selling in 6 months, call me. Or we are thinking of moving next year. You have to enter all this information into your database. And you don't have to pay anybody. You don't have to get really sophisticated. You can simply use Google Doc, Excel file, have fields of what is their name, when you should call them, what's their phone number, what's their email, but you should have some sort of database. If you don't have a database, you're not in business. You have to take this database very seriously. If you're a business person, if you want to be in business, you want to have people's information and when to call them back. Okay, so before we move ahead, and yes, we need a good 15 minutes for this last section, but is there a quick question online, people that are watching us, or from you guys here? We can move on? Okay, so this last section is important because it will prepare you how to start, where to start, and when are the good times to start, and what are the good sources of getting buyers and sellers. So I summarize it as easy as 1, 2, 3. And when I say this, I'm serious, it's not a joke. So either you lose weight or you gain weight, and we will see what does that mean. Basically, you will generate leads through walking and having some activity, and I will give you some of the options. And as I said, we go into detail of each of these options in the 3rd week of each month. You have to attend those seminars to go into detail. Or you gain weight because you meet a lot of people in lunches and breakfast, and I will tell you those sources. And then what are the timings that you should call them, okay? So the options for your walking is door knocking, or what we call farming. I did a whole 2-hour session on farming. Basically, you select a specific geographical location and you try to brand yourself and you knock on the doors. And again, as I said, we will provide you so many options. You have to align it with your personality. You can go to website, my website, realestateinfocus.ca, or you can go to homelifedreams.ca, and then on the right side there is a YouTube logo. You click on it, and then the website will come. You can search for farming. I have done a 2-hour session, how to do farming, what are the criteria for farming. But this is one of the options. Basically, it is door knocking. I think each time, at least you should do 100 doors. The open house invitation, basically when you list a new home, you can go to the houses and say, you know what, I want to invite you to my open house. Tomorrow or day after, I have an open house, you're invited. And once you sell a property or list a property, you have opportunities to go to the same people. This is about branding. It doesn't cost you too much, and it is good for your health. Now these are good sources. By the way, in this a minute or two spending on each slide, trust me, it doesn't do a good justice to all these options. We expand on each one, the advantages and how to do it, and walk you through step by step in different sessions. And some of those sessions are already gone, so you have to visit the website realestateinfocus.ca or homelifedreams.ca, and you can watch them, or come to these sessions that are in the 3rd week of every month. But basically, this is one of the sources of getting leads, generating leads. And these are the things that is working, and it has worked. And these are the things that agents that are successful are doing. As I said, you expect more information, but the few minutes that are left in this session, we cannot go into detail. If you're interested, watch the videos. Now, this one is the most interesting one. I think this kind of aligns with most people's personality. I think the first thing you can do is you can call your friends, previous coworkers, professionals that you work with, your dentist, your doctor, your accountant, your hairdresser. We know so many people in our circle of life. We know a lot of people, even if we are a very shy person. Even if we are a very reserved person and we don't meet people, trust me, we know quite a lot of people. We know our kids' parents. We know so many people. The list can go on and on. You can call them and set time to go for a breakfast or lunch. You're just trying to establish a friendly relationship, but ultimately your main goal is that these people will like you, will trust you. They will not only give you business, but more importantly, these people will be your gateways to referrals. So let's say your neighbor, for example, you're very close. One day you want to say, you know what, today I want to take you out for a lunch. Or you go for a breakfast. You go out, you sit down, you have nice time. It's about quality of your life too, because when you spend time with someone you like, you enjoy, At the same time, they might know someone in their workplace or their friend or someone that they know, not themselves necessarily, not necessarily your neighbor, but someone in their circle of influence might be thinking of selling or buying. They say on average, out of every 3 person, one person knows somebody that is thinking of buying or selling. So on average, every 3 people we know, one of them knows someone that is thinking of buying or selling. It's very powerful and it is very easy. I'm 100% confident that all of us know people in our life. We know quite a lot of people. It could range from our family and cousins to friends to neighbors to co-workers to previous place that we have worked. There are so many people. If we sit down and write their names, I'm sure we will come up with at least 100 or more people right now. So I think this is a tool that we can all utilize right away, especially for new agents. And that's why I said one way is to lose weight by walking, and then this is the way to gain weight, because you'll go to a lot of lunches and breakfast. And this is the least expensive, especially when you start real estate. You have already paid for a lot of expenses and courses and whatnot. The closer your circle of influence is, that means if they're friends, your families, the less amount of money it will cost you. It might cost you a lunch or two to get their business, instead of spending thousands of dollars on magazines and newspapers and this and that. If you have already spent and invested your time knowing them, you might utilize and take advantage of that relationship now. As I said, do not narrow your mind and think of them only. These people may not sell or buy. They might have just bought last month. But these people could be your gateways to a lot of people that they know. They know somebody, when their coworkers say, "Oh, we are thinking of selling," if you're nice to them, if you have taken them for lunch, your name might come up in their mind. So I would highly recommend, especially if you're new, you should utilize this. But I think no matter what kind of activity we do, whether we do door knocking or we do open houses or we meet friends and circle of influence, it boils down to our commitment to follow up. If you don't pick up the phone or if you don't email the people that you have met, it will not work. As I said, that's why that database, creating that database is very important. That database doesn't have to be sophisticated. You can simply do a Google Doc, Excel file, when to call people back. If you don't have a follow-up system, I can tell you 90% of the things that would have worked will not work. You have to have a follow-up system. So some kind of a database that will remind you when to call people back, and you take notes. And this database will eventually build up. It might start with few people. One day you will notice that you have hundreds of people on your database that you know. You have their phone number, you have their email, you have their contact information, and they have told you to call back, when to call back. So that database is basically your business. In the business of real estate, database is the whole or the main asset of your business. So keep that database and have the commitment to follow up. If you simply go for a lunch and if you don't have a follow-up, you have wasted your money most of the time. Or if you went for a door knocking and if you then have a follow-up system, because if you went to someone's house door knocking, they might say, "You know what, my husband is out of town. We are thinking of selling when he comes back, and he will be coming back in 6 months, so call me back at that time." If you say, "You know what, 6 months is too far, who cares?" 6 months will come, you will not call someone, some other agents will get the business. So you got to have that follow-up system in order to get those leads, capture those leads, and nurture the relationship. It's very crucial. I cannot repeat it enough. And I think I want to leave you with this. This is one of the last couple of slides. I think in this business, whether you like it or not, people look at you as a salesperson. And you know that we all, even ourselves, we don't like a salesperson. When we are in a mall and we walk into a shoe store and we are looking at different options, and this guy comes and says, how can I help you? Say, "Get away from me, just leave me alone." Is that not the case? That's how we are all, right? So somehow most people look at us not as their advisor or consultant, where that's how it should be. We should have this image of a professional consultant. We are trying to help them. But unfortunately, due to the practice of some of the people in our industry, people look at us as a pure salesperson, and people don't like salesperson. And so when you knock on doors and when you approach people, some people might be rude. Remember, do not take anything personally. I can assure you, because I have been through all this, no one has any personal intention, or no one is trying to put you down. That's not the case. It is simply because they don't like a salesperson, no matter what color you're, or what background you're, or what accent you have, or they had a bad day and they want to take it out at you because you're the easiest target. You're disturbing their life. So I just want to warn you that I think when these kind of scenarios happen, either when you do door knocking and people are upset at you, or when you're working with a buyer for a couple of weeks and then they ditch you and they move on to another agent, if those kind of scenarios happen, always remember there is nothing personal. This is part of life. This is part of job. You should just take it as part of job. Remember not to take any of these personal, because if you do, it will affect you. It will bring down your confidence. You will not like real estate. You will try to get away from real estate. I think that is one of the most important things to remember. And I think the last thing that I want you to remember, and this is the last slide in this presentation, is that always you should try to learn, because we are not selling properties. Remember, we are selling services. We are facilitating the sale of or buying of properties. So always remember that. And the more knowledge you have, the more confidence you have. The more confidence and knowledge you will have, the more your clients will trust you. And the more knowledge you have, you can serve your clients better. So always try to come to these weekly sessions. We have it every week at the same time. Every Saturday at 10 o'clock, with the exception of long weekends, and we don't have it if once in a while there is a fifth Saturday in a month. Otherwise, every Saturday 10 to 12, there are different topics. Sometimes it's about CEO credit course, sometimes it's about basics, like today it is the foundation. Sometimes it is about developing and taking your career to the next level, which is usually on the third week. Next week, for example, on the second week, we invite speakers from different